Continuamos entonces. Entonces, esta es nuestra serie de webinarios sobre la educación para las transformaciones agroecológicas.
This is our series of webinars called Let's Eat or Educate for Agroecological Transformations. This came out of an event that we had, at the university last year, where many of our collaborators and friends participated, and we created a group of different institutions of people who participate in agroecological education to create sessions of co-learning so that we can see how people are moving forward transformative agroecological education. So we wanted to have an opportunity for people to learn about these different programs. This is our third such session. First, we had the effort of University of Vermont in our post-grad sessions, postgraduate education. Then we had Ecosur, and now we have the huge delight of having our colleagues from Spain tell us about the Masters in Agroecology and Sustainable Development. This master's degree is an effort that combines 3 different universities in Spain: the Institute for Sociology and Peasant Studies at the University of Cordoba, the Pablo de Olavide University, and the International University of Andalusia. This is a program that's been around now for 30 years in an effort to advance agroecology and agroecological education. I'd also like to mention that something that I've always appreciated about this program is that it has a transdisciplinary focus. It's been a pioneer since the beginning in bringing social sciences and sociology to agroecology. And now they've been able to advance in topics such as political agroecology and others. I'm also very appreciative. I was there in a couple of years ago, but I've been there several times, and it's always a joy for me. Anytime that we can strengthen our ties, not just with this program in Spain, but also with everyone who's participating here in this session. So just to let you know what's coming up, the next program that we're going to have in this series will be with the Veracruzian University, with a master's in environmental education for sustainability, which will be on October 3rd. To my friend and colleague,
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you please explain the translation one more time? I think we missed that slide. If you can go back to the second slide, maybe, or the one before that. There should be the.
No hay otro.
Okay. All right. So that slide is missing.
We can say it again. O sea, lo puedo explicar otra vez. Que si necesitan traducción, tienen que ir abajo de la pantalla de Zoom.
If you need translation,
presionan el mundo y escogen el idioma preferencial de ustedes. Ya lo había dicho. Sí. Muchas gracias. Ok, Manolo, ahora sí. Voy a dejar de compartir y puedes entrar tú.
Okay, Manuel, it's all you. I'm going to stop sharing and you can begin.
Estás en silencio, Manolo.
You are silent, Manolo. Now?
Ahora.
Yes. I was telling myself that I'm very excited to being here and very happy. And I should apologize beforehand that I couldn't be here for reasons of health when the IFA was inaugurated and I wasn't able to be in Vermont. But this is the opportunity to link again with the activities that you are organizing. I'm going to speak in Spanish because that's my language and I'm going to do it better in this language. I see that a lot of people either know Spanish or it's their mother tongue. I don't think there's going to be a lot of problems. So I have a double screen, so it's a little difficult for me to manage to share my screen.
Stop it! Get in! Get in!
Everyone, please mute your microphones. Manolo, si estabas compartiendo pantalla, solo tienes que ponerla en presentación.
You are sharing your screen. You just have to put the presentation. We are now seeing your email. Now, there. I don't have anything to hide. So, theoretically, David left me this presentation, the co-director of this master's. He gave me this presentation, so I have to apologize because I have to improvise a little on his presentation. As it has already been said, this is a master's that has been going on in Andalusia in the south of Spain since 1996. And it's a proposal that started with the clock, with Gladys, together with a PhD program that was called Agroecology, Peasantry, and History. And we were developing it in the University of Cordoba with Eduardo Sevilla Guzman and myself. It was a program that a lot of universities were there, besides universities from Andalusia. And in conversations with Miguel Altieri and Jorge Jur Davis, we managed that the University of Sevilla then could host this first approach of doing a master's that was always focused towards Latin American, and a master's where we tried to move forward in agroecology. That was quite a new thing. As you all know, the organization or the systematization of the first steps of agroecology were given at the end of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s, with the development of the main points of agroecology was something that was being built, and it was very important to discuss. So in the first years of that master, it was an intense exchange among comrades, both from the side of students and of teachers. And fundamentally, it was people who was related to alternative agriculture and were questioning industrial agriculture. So this master's wasn't an official title until 2006, with the support of the three universities. It would become a master's, and like an official master's. As Ernesto just said, the approach from the beginning was an approach that was very social. The orientation or the approach that arrived from Berkeley and California, that was like the focus, the main focus, or from Chile, of the SET, and other very interesting institutions of Latin America. It was mainly technical. We were working in a very strong relationship with social movements and peasant movements in Andalusia. And the social part of it was very, very important. We weren't looking for an approach of a technical point of view, but from a social point of view that had more weight. So I think we were trying to build something transdisciplinary in a collective way with comrades from Latin America, the development of agroecological thought, not only in the technical sense side of it, but also social, economical, and political. And that's why from the beginning, we've been related with the productive sector, but also with the territories, with the rest of the food chain. And since the beginning, we also had a very clear orientation of food systems. It wasn't only the production, but for us, it was very important, the distribution and the consumption. And we combined from the beginning the local aspects with the global aspects as a product of collaboration between the two parts of the Atlantic. And for us, it was a very clear idea since the beginning that agroecology had a transformative dimension, that you couldn't understand it without a social radical change of the social conditions, economic conditions, and political conditions. So that's why the teachers that we started working with, although they were mainly, apparently it had to be from the Iberic Peninsula, but from the beginning, there was a lot of teachers from Latin America. The profile that we always looked for, it was people that were very involved with life processes of agroecological transformation, and people that were only in the academic realm, but that were also in the ground, that were involved in the practice, transformation through practice. And that's why this master's had a dimension since the beginning of going out of the classroom, to do field work, to be in contact with the producers, etc. Since the beginning, we had the students came mainly from Latin America. And as we moved on, students from Spain incorporated. And recently, we've been receiving a lot of students from the rest of Europe, also mainly from the Mediterranean, but also we have some people are coming from the north of Africa, although language is a challenge there for us. The origin, and it was what Ernesto was talking about, and the multidisciplinary part of it. The origin was very diverse, of people that were very oriented to social sciences, but also from agronomics or agroecology, etc. With agroecological trajectories, people who were very involved and that had an academic status, for example, and also people who were very new to agroecology. So it was very diverse. And they had a good predisposition to get involved into agroecology. This has allowed us to be very aware the development of agroecology, and we've always been trying to be in a constant dialectics that has allowed us to move forward, precisely trying to combine social sciences with natural sciences, and in the debate of social movements or public policies, in that debate, using different methodological approaches that belong to social sciences, but also to the natural sciences, and trying to establish proposals that would mix both of them. And we've always been very aware of the importance of how to, of pedagogy, and how to transmit all this information. We've changed a few things, and it's been evolving, the masters. At the beginning, it was courses that were very conventional in agroecology, and we've been incorporating new approaches, and we've been trying to verify and to evaluate the contents of the masters. And in the last review we've made, an evaluation we made, we changed, and we've made obligatory courses that are feminist approaches for agroecology. And we've incorporated also aspects related to consumption in a course as well, that's trying to develop the aspects of the agroecological aspects of consumption, and also of a workshop of podcast as a tool of extensionism. For us, there's been an important change at the what they have to finish at hand in at the end of the masters. It used to have 120 credits. Then we reduced it to only a year. And during this time, what the students had to hand in was just a paper related to participation action. So we've made it as a shorter thing. So the students have to hand in a document that is between 60 and 100 pages long, and where they have to develop a research, original research, or make a design of an experiment, for example, that they can develop as a PhD thesis, for example, or a scientific paper with a certain format. As the tutors that are part of this are teachers that have a master or a PhD degree. However, this is also a way to incorporate the practical side of it. There can be a co-tutoring with a professor that comes from the country of origin or the movement, social movement from the student's thematic. And the criteria that are used in the masters are there. I'm not going to develop them or go through them, but I'm going to say that it's been very important for us that the project they hand in at the end isn't only like a requisite, but that it's something that helps us change and transform reality. So we try to encourage the students that the projects are related to live experiences, and that you can use these experiences and translate them to other places. So this paper as a tool for social transformation. And for us, a fundamental part of it is that it has a gender and feminist approach, and also intersectional. because the Spanish state is also becoming a space like this. What we ask is mainly that that the thing they hand in is something useful, that is viable in terms of time. They only have 6 months to do it. That the student is interested in making it, and that is also hosted by one of the proposals from the professors at the beginning of the masters of thematics that are interesting to get involved in. One of the things that is most important from my point of view, and in other province from Islam, it's in Baeza. So students have a very strong relationship with students and also among students. And they also develop auto-organizative for meals, for activities. From the point of view, a vital point of view for the period that they're living there. And in that process, it is very important, a very important exchange of experiences. That is one of the most interesting things of this master. This master, I don't have a very important impact in the agroecology history. Not only because there's been more than 600 alumni from this masters in almost 30 years, but also because a very important part of people who are in social movements or in universities, leaders in agroecology, and even politicians, for example, in Brazil, that have charges that are with a lot of responsibility, have gone through this masters. And they left us with their experience, their knowledge, and with whom we still have a very strong relationship. Our vision, if we had the money for it, to build an agroecological community related to the masters that now is working from each class. But it would be interesting to make it a more broader thing. In the concrete aspect of political agroecology, we've had activities of seminars, for example, that have guided the participation of government in Latin America and in Spain and the autonomous communities. And also working groups that SOCLA is promoting as part of CLADES in social sciences, where we have a working group of political agroecology that is focused on social movements, but also in public policies. This master's gives way to the PhD, and this is what I wanted to share in the 15 minutes that we had. I hope it didn't take me too long. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Manolo, and go ahead, Mamen. Thank you so much. To the whole team here, huh? This is a true privilege to be in this space with you all. And now I hope to speak a little bit about these different things, and we can tie together these topics.
Vale, pues bueno, voy a continuar un poco lo que ha comentado Manolo, ¿no? Lo que yo voy a decir, bueno, pues Manolo podría decirlo también, ¿no? O por lo menos una parte, una gran parte de todo el proceso, ¿no? Que en los últimos tiempos.
So everything that I'm going to talk about, Manolo would also be able to explain. Just kind of how the program works. So to use the metaphor of the river, as Ernesto did in his first presentation about the UVM program, I'm just going over what Manolo said here. If we look back at the river where it flows from, we see Eduardo Sevilla, Manolo, people who were visionaries in that period. Agroecology with a political and social perspective. So back then in 1993, we started a program which was called Agroecology, Peasantry and History. The name has changed over time. In a certain period of time, it was called Agroecology, Sociology and Sustainable Rural Development. And then in 2015, it became an official program. And that has been an influence, right? As Manolo said, these have had to do with different kinds of a royal decree, which in 2015 changed the essence of what we were doing, the soul of what we were doing. And thrown into one sack all of the issues of productionism and neoliberalism into academics. So in order to have this be an officially recognized program, we would have to reach these different criteria of excellence. And we've talked a little bit about what that meant in Spain at the time. So there was an effort to create what they called macro programs. So our master's program, which had already been working for several years, transformed into a sub-program within a macro program. So now the program, which is called Natural Resources and Sustainable Management, within a research line, which is called Agroecology, Food Sovereignty, and the Commons. So to give a little bit of stats, right? These, of course, are not numbers. These are people. These are networks. These are connections, relationships that we have with people. These are PhD theses. So there's been 112 comrades who have been through this doctorate program. I'm one of them. As we can see, that several people from Spain, many from Brazil. That's where the most amount of people have come from. Mexico also, Argentina, and then fewer people from other countries, but very relevant in where people are coming from, like Colombia, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Chile, Uruguay, and Angola as well. So to talk a little bit about the topics and then continue with what Manolo was talking about, looking at a holistic and complex understanding of reality. These topics take on a very large quantity of foci. So to try to do a small classification, we can say that several of the PhD theses have taken on a technical or ecosystemic approach. Very powerful work having to do with water, biodiversity, energy, soil, and nutrients. Then there's been a slightly smaller block of PhD dissertations, which have been more about the impacts of the industrial food system. So it's giving numbers, statistics to these impacts. Now, the largest block of PhD research has been on what we call agroecological processes of transition from different perspectives, scales, contexts, and approaches. But there's also a very important group of studies which have been to systematize these agroecological processes, scales, etc. Now, there's been another really important block of studies which have focused on public policy. There are some different frameworks, including education, extension work, agrarian reform, and rural development. Now, another really important block of research which has been on the what we call the systematization of experiences of indigenous people, communities, peasant groups, and movements. The construction of alternatives that generate responses and challenges that maybe nobody's looking at. There's been very little written about it. It's been invisible. We're talking about powerful experiences of indigenous people, of peasant groups, of counter-hegemonic movements, the women's feminist perspective, which breaks many schemes. So these are sort of the topics that have emerged through people's research and that are continue to be developed. And accompanying all of this, the master's thesis and the PhD work is a network of sisters and brothers in institutions of higher education and research. We have, in a way that responds to the reality of how these theses have been developed, how these dissertations have been developed. So you can see that many of these people are from Spain, or an important group from Mexico, a group from Brazil, which even though it's only 6 people, but these are people with a high degree of experience with public policy. And then we have a teaching team from many different countries in Chile, Colombia, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Uruguay, Argentina. Now, one of the questions that most reflects the changes in our norms, which we talked about, which changed in 2015 when we had these high requirements to be able to reach excellence and be accredited. There was a demand to have what I would put into quotes academic excellence, because they measure that by published papers, etc., and how competitive all this is. So that meant for us to lose several of our accompaniments, several of the people who were accompanying us, powerful people who were no longer able to continue, people who were working on very important topics, but they were no longer able to advise research the thesis of students because of these requirements. So that was something that we lost by becoming an official program. And for us, that's been very painful. It bothers us. It bothers us. So what brings us together of all of this community? Because at the end of the day, in this PhD, we create a community. These are long processes, they're powerful processes. We're united by a base of people who are connected by activism and networks, people who come from social movements or people from the university, but from a very activist perspective. So that's a language which we share. These are things that we recognize and that we identify ourselves in. Then research as well. Research within this large community. We see research as an instrument to defend ourselves, to propose, to make a difference, to generate changes. And the challenges we face, each of us in our different contexts. This instrument is for this institutional and social change. And then the framework for this is the political project of agroecology and food sovereignty, which for us is an entirely interconnected network, an interconnected framework. If you'll let me, I'd like to share 4 slides about sort of the formalities of this program, because this could help us with the practice of our PhD. So there's requirements for entering. There's a very important part, which is people who come from the masters in agroecology, but also there's people who come from other master's programs. And they might be assigned a set of complementary trainings to be able to bring themselves and make sure there's a common language, right? Shared language. Then there's in Europe, there's a requirement which the masters no longer have training courses, because the understanding is that training courses were part of a previous master's. So people who come in already have to have a master's degree, either in agroecology or in another that we recognize because we feel that it's in the same complementary format. Okay. So then we review, take a look, understand that there's a political project behind this master's thesis, right? That what they're proposing is a breaking with some sort of some chain or some, it adds up to some political change. Now the thesis directors, the thesis advisors do not need to be from our institute. They can be from any institute as long as they fulfill a number of requirements within their CV. So when it is somebody from our own program, which would be David Gaillard or myself, we create this link between the process of the thesis, the student, and the University of Cordoba. And that helps, makes it easy so that this can be a more inclusive program. The time that people spend in the program is 5 to 8 years. That was also a change that happened in 2015, which the control of time became much more strict. In that period of time, people need to complete their training plan. Doesn't need to be courses. It can also be internships, visits. There's got to be a research plan, which is evaluated regularly to make sure that it's advancing on track. And then there's an instrument for people to be able to take time off if there's a medical issue, or if maybe somebody started the program 11 years ago, but there was something that came up and they were able to ask to be let out of the program for a period of time. It's like freezing it, and then they're able to come back in. And then every 3 months or so, we organize what we call seminaries, where the person who is a student of the doctorate shows what they've been able to do so far with the accompaniment of their advisor, and others are able to listen and provide comments. And next year, we'll also begin with topic-focused seminaries. So this will include the network of people who have graduated, and some of them are working in different institutes, but we'll create seminaries which are more of exchanges that go beyond our institute. Then there's an article in a reviewed journal, published article. A thesis, which can be created through combining articles and then somehow an international mention of some kind, which has to do with the quality of the thesis. There's also several different opportunities to find financing, to spend time in other places and also co-advised thesis. So let's say I'm doing a thesis. Let's say that I'm from the Universidad Veracruzana in Mexico. I can also sign up for the University of Cordoba, and then my thesis can have an advisor from both places. So then I'll get two diplomas, one from the Mexican institution and one from the other, one from ours in Spain. So it makes it simple.
Voy a dar la palabra a Tatiane de Sousa Márquez, que es la compañera del doctorado bueno, con la que acompaña doctorandas y tal, porque para que comente algunas cositas también y ya terminamos, ¿vale? Ahí están nuestros correos. Tati.
So you can see our email there. And Tati, please. Hello, good afternoon. I just wanted to say a few things. My name is Tatiani, and I'm an alumni from the PhD program and as well as the master's program. So today, my family is from there. I am from Brazil. And I've been living in Cordoba and since my master's program, and I've made a family here. In my PhD, I finished my PhD recently, last year. And I was looking for this, I looked for this master's and the PhD programs. Sorry, it's breaking down. I was very involved with social movements, and I really wanted to change things, to give visibility to all the work that was being made in a professional way. And I heard about the master's and the PhD programs, and for me, it made perfect sense. Because I think that when you're in a place where you work and there's an ideology and a vision of changing the world, not many things work. And this PhD has with itself a constant of change and the commitment with social justice, for example, or with the commons and the environmental aspect of it, and also education, for example. And we in Latin America struggle a lot with all of this. It's a PhD where you can identify yourself as a militant, because most of the students and of the teachers are militants. They're very related to the reality. It's a very critical PhD, as well as the master's. They're both very critical, and has like a activist profile. And it's also a part of more concrete processes of action research participation. It's a hard PhD if there's no scholarships, but that's been changing a little. But the process is hard, but at the same time, during this time, you have a lot of personal growth that gives us a little of stability afterwards.
que decíamos eso, ¿no? Como que acaba siendo los seminarios como hospitales de tratamiento, ¿no? Que nosotros vamos, son puntos de apoyo, ¿no? Que globales, ¿no? Que nos vamos nos encontrando y nos acrecentando, ¿no? Y bueno, pues, y es eso, ¿no? Creo que...
No, I just wanted to say a few things. One of the most important things as well is that within a research, both in the master's and the PhD program, you don't work for somebody or you study all day, but mainly for collective construction and transdisciplinary projects. It is true that at some point there's a lot of work that also always happens within a PhD, but it's also very refreshing, and we celebrate a lot our work, and we can build tools and celebrate the work we're doing and change people's reality and making a better world. I am responsible for the PhD students. I've been participating both in the master's and the PhD program. Thank you very much, Mamen and Tatiane, for sharing with us. We are now going to have a small discussion, group discussion. We are running a little behind, and we wanted to give some space for questions. And what I'm gonna ask of you is that if you have questions regarding your programs, please write them down, and maybe we can answer them in plenary afterwards. But it's very important for us for all of us to be together and put you in groups so that you can discuss a little more some questions that we've thought of and that the team from Spain brought. So with that, we're gonna be breaking in groups, please.
Disculpa si las conversaciones se quedaron cortadas.
Hello again. Sorry if
Hello again. Apologies if
you
the
didn't have enough time to
conversations
finish
were
our
cut off.
conversations.
It
That
happened to us too. We're doing the best
We are running
we
a little
can.
behind, so we
We've got
have
to
to
continue.
move forward.
We've got to continue with the times that we have. So
What I
what
wanted
I'd
to
like
do
to do
now
now is ask the groups
is that the
to
groups would share with us their discussion, and maybe very briefly, I don't know in the end how many groups we had. 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So maybe we can start with group number 1, but maybe with group number 2, sorry. The group where Janica and Gabriela were there. I don't know if you chose someone to present.
Yes, Sophia.
yeah, I guess that's me. Hello, my name is Sophia. I'm a PhD candidate in political science and sociology, doing my research with the Kenyan Peasants League and working together with Colin Anderson as well. So I took notes. We talked about different things. One of the things we talked about, the overall one thing is that there is more than one answer to this question, that this is a very big question. Then we talked about, because a few of us had been in the PAR course on interdisciplinary research and agroecology, and that having an openness, as that course had at the end of the course, for the students in groups to shape the curriculum, made it possible also for students to shape the researchers and then thereby also more easily adapt to what the researchers are doing. So having this sort of back and forth, shaping each other. Then we talked about that how you engage the students, of course, also depends on who the students are. Are they activists? Are they farmers? Are they working another job at the same time? Are they just there to be students and then leave academia afterwards? That also depends on how that is. Then there was also a suggestion of dividing classes into small groups and attaching them to a specific farm and having them set up projects with the farmers. Then again, having these sort of mixed classes of academics and non-academics, which could give really valuable collaborations in mixed groups. And that would also encourage different ways of sharing knowledge. And at the same time, deconstructing what we think teaching is, that it's not just this sort of banking model of one-way communication, but that it's a mutual learning process. Then we also talked about doing more research with organizations to create policy briefs and analyses that support practitioners. Another way could be for having students teach a semester and thereby sort of take on the role as the teacher. Another suggestion was that after you take a course, you can be part of shaping that course, shaping the curriculum for the next time the course is taught. And lastly, an example from the Kenyan Peasants League, who every time they have a summer school, they have a pre-summer school where they adapt the curriculum of the summer school to the people who are actually participating in their needs, which of course might be a little unrealistic for a university setting that has sort of strict demands on when to turn in curriculum and things like that, but that's sort of an ideal model of inclusion of the students' needs, which also makes it easier for the students to create research that adapts to the teaching of the institute. I think that was everything. If there's something I forgot, please chime in from our group.
Well, we're gonna have to stop there because we are running on the late side. So thank you so much, Sophia, for sharing. And let's go now to group 3, my group, Amaya.
I should talk in English or Spanish?
El que quieras.
Ok, voy a hablar en español entonces.
Sale.
Okay, I'll speak in Spanish. Good morning to all of you. We were reflecting on how to develop the tools in agroecology. And we talked about the development of critical and creative approaches. So Ali, for example, said that when people are very critical, sometimes the message doesn't arrive, so we have to be very creative. It was also really important to try to use different languages when we're speaking with indigenous groups and ways of expressing ourselves. It was said that we shouldn't just use academic articles, but also webcasts, podcasts, more creative ways of reaching the audience. It was mentioned that the agroecology has different dimensions. And so when we write an article, we might not be thinking about the complexity of it. So it's important to have a holistic approach, to speak in a broader way, to communicate, and to work in a more transdisciplinary way of being very creative. I'm not sure if anyone would like to say any more. No time. Thank you, Amaya. You did a good job. Let's go with group number 1. This was how to get beyond disciplinarity. I'm here for group number 1. Hello, hello. Lina. So we talked about in this transdisciplinarity, we needed to be able to talk with people who understand the territories. In my PhD, I've got all the support of the University of Cordoba, and I'm working in Colombia. So there's a lot of support. We also have lots of passions, and so how do we express that emotional sides of ourselves, but also how to have the humility to accept changes in our research. And how do we maintain an open mind towards new things and different perspectives, even though it's a personal work that we're doing? Also, having the specialty of our topics. There's a negative part if we're not able to develop conversations, diverse, transdisciplinary conversations, and develop consensus in common work streams so that we have a place to relate with one another in a diverse way where we can share experiences, good experiences, bad experiences, so that this interdisciplinarity can be enriched through our work. That's more or less what we discussed in our group. I'm not sure if anybody else from our group would like to add, or maybe we're over time. Unfortunately, we are over time, but thank you so much. And now we'll go to group number 4, please. How to return the results of our research to the processes and territories. So I'll be brief to read the notes that Nils took. Hello to all. It's great to be participating in this and see familiar faces. I'm going to start from the end to the beginning. We talked about the challenges that conventional programs have compared with a program in agroecology. There's a challenge between publishing the results that we have and how also to advance the movement that I'm researching. That's not a separate question within agroecology. It's not separate like it is in more conventional work. Also, let's see here. Also talking about the way that we translate researchers has to be very intentional. When work is more community-based, when the questions and the results have already come out of the community, how do we translate that to a more academic, institutional audience with researchers? I'll leave it there. Thank you so much to all of you. So we're going to close there. I just wanted to stop there and share my joy that we're with so many people here working on agroecology and with my dearly beloved colleagues from Spain. Yannick is going to take us to the goodbye. I'm going to share on the screen the information about the next webinar that we're going to hold. Thank you so much and take good care. Yeah, thank you so much to the team from Spain, to all of you for participating. And as Ernesto said, we will see you next time. It'll be in October when our dear Alejandra Guzman Luna va tell us about the Masters in Intercultural Education, Intercultural Education for Sustainability at the Veracruz University. This will be uploaded to the famous YouTube, and it will be available to you soon to see. Thank you so much to all. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week. Take good care.